Hi, welcome to Itsy Bitsy Book Bits. Today I'm reading to you from Caim, from the Antipodes series by T.S. Simons. Chapter 1. Feeling my way through the darkness, I moved cautiously to avoid stumbling over a carelessly discarded toy and cracking my shin against the solid timber furniture that crowded our home. At well past midnight it was blissfully silent, and the children tucked up in bed. Bone-deep weariness after assisting a long and challenging labour propelled me to my own. Hopefully Isla would check on the mare and her foal in the morning, leaving me to sleep. Kicking off my boots and dropping my clothes in a heap on a nearby chair, I couldn't suppress the audible sigh that escaped my lips as my weary head finally connected with the pillow, careful not to wake Cam, who was sleeping soundly beside me. Never had I been so pleased to be lying down. Closing my eyes, I willed sleep to overtake me. Short, sharp trills punctuated the still night air. "What is that frigging noise?" I muttered, as the screeching continued unabated, like a bird announcing the approach of a predator. I rolled over, burying my head under the pillow, praying it would stop. Cam stirred enough to kiss my protruding neck, then lifted his head, alert. "That's the alarm!" we chorused, sitting bolt upright, my pillow tumbling to the floor. That harsh noise could only be one thing, the proximity sensor. We hadn't heard it since we had set it up years earlier, and I scarcely recalled the sound of it. Flinging back the covers, I staggered the two steps to my still warm clothing on the chair as Cam snatched at yesterday's clothes carelessly discarded on the floor. Still pulling arms through sleeves, we ran to Illy and Luca's house, Cam several strides ahead of me. Thumping coming from their home, bare feet on the floorboards echoed through the crisp night air. "Bloody hell, who approaches an island in the middle of the night?" I grumbled as I joined him on the doorstep, and Cam knocked lightly. Functioning with no sleep was not a strength of mine, especially not when tumbling out of bed unceremoniously. Cam kissed me, glancing down at my unbuttoned jeans. "Hurry and finish getting dressed. If Luca answers the door, he'll see more of you than any of us are comfortable with." My groggy, half-asleep mind pictured the times Luca had seen me naked or barely dressed in the years we had travelled together, coming out of a shower or daring me to go skinny dipping with him in a lake on a domed community, but my brain couldn't form the words. Fortunately, Illy answered the door, looking dishevelled but alert as she tied her heather-grey robe, long dark hair falling across her face. She ushered us inside with her usual chirpy tone as I hurriedly finished fastening my jeans, socks and shoes still in hand. She was my best friend and I adored her, but right now I hated her. How could she possibly be happy to see us at this hour? Once inside, she steered us towards the study and closed the door so we wouldn't wake their twin girls. Alison and Summer were 6, a few months older than our youngest, Thorsten, our bonus baby, the child we had when we thought we had finished having children. Louis and Katrin could look after the younger two if they woke and found us gone. Xanthi was our sensitive child and often had nightmares, waking screaming in terror. Luca had turned off the alarm and barely acknowledged our entrance, busily hooking up the larger surveillance monitor as we crowded in. Standing behind him as he fiddled with cables and camera feeds, we strained our eyes, watching the dark shadow slithering on the single screen. As my eyes adjusted to the darkness, I could just make out a sizable white boat mooring in the harbour at Stornoway. "That's not anyone from Newgrange, is it?" Illy asked as she returned and thrust a steaming mug in my hand and a matching one in Cam's, but we all recognised the question as rhetorical. "Fuck," I muttered, not removing my eyes from the screen. Luca was studying the craft carefully, muttering under his breath, "I don't recognise it." We all stood watching the screen, waiting for someone to appear on deck and tie up. A minute passed. 2. I grunted at Cam, knocking back the contents of the cup in one gulp. We'll go. Ills, can you watch ours? Waking any of our other friends at this time of night would make us most unpopular, not to mention unnecessarily scare people. Cam's sister Sorka and her partner Di lived with their 2 children on the opposite side of our home. Isla and Fraser lived between our place and Illy's, Jamie and Jacinda further down the valley. Any of them would assist, but all had young children and would almost certainly be asleep. Illy smiled at me. Of course, I'll head down while Luca keeps watch. Are you sure you don't want one of us to go? We discussed this scenario often when setting up the alarms in both our homes, what we would do if someone approached Lewis, our protected community. Self-sufficient and isolated, we loved the sense of belonging here. Everyone looked out for each other, lending a hand. That sense of interconnectedness that extended between all residents. 7 years ago, our community had severed ties with the outside world to prohibit the intrusive and controlling influence of the team of scientists at Clava near Inverness. Wanting to dictate our laws, our trade, but most sinister of all, forcing us to have children with a scientifically selected partner, the scientists in the 2 controlling communities of Clava near Inverness on mainland Scotland and Auckland Island off the coast of New Zealand had devised and implemented a selective breeding program to reproduce key genome sequences and ensure their survival. No, I sighed, more than a little grumpy by the unexpected early morning call-out. We'll go. Illy grinned at Cam. She knew me well enough to know I desperately wanted to go back to bed, but we had promised. When we had established our security systems and protocols, we had agreed it was less threatening if Cam and I responded to any unplanned visitors. Illy and Luca had been military personnel before coming here, whereas Cam and I were civilians. After all, it could be anyone. A similar isolated community existed in Newgrange, Ireland, another community not part of the collective, the Association of Domed Communities. More protected settlements existed on the mainland of the UK, and several on the Scottish islands of Orkney and the Shetlands, although they were all now part of the collective. People occasionally came to visit, or us them, but never without. Luca grimaced as he sipped from the mug that appeared tiny in his enormous hands. I've repositioned the cameras and the satellite. I'll be watching. You remember the distress signal? Luca handed Cam one of the few remaining operational handheld 2-way radios. We had originally taken a large supply on one of our raids on the mainland and had spread them out across the community so people could always contact each other. With the original rechargeable batteries failing and no way to replace them, the remaining functional units were a precious resource. We do. Come on, honey, we need to move to make it before dawn, and it will be slow going in the dark. They couldn't have thought to visit at a reasonable hour, I grumbled, as our golf cart chugged slowly up the hill in the dark, out of our beautiful valley of Roseglen, and towards the original and largest settlement of Garinahain. The lights on the cart barely strong enough to cast a shadowed light on the dirt track. Who do you think it could be? No clue. If they are strangers, they won't be able to see the geodesic dome openings in the dark. They will probably wait on their vessel until first light. We have a little time. They may not know we have been alerted to their arrival. He slipped an arm around me as he drove, and I snuggled close. We approached the dock slowly as the dawn light tinted the horizon a pretty pink gold, making everything glow warmly. But I was in no mood to look at sunrises. It was clear that this was no one we knew. No one had radioed ahead to announce their arrival. Friends would have arrived in daylight, not caring that they could be seen by us, and likely by the surveillance teams on Clava. Standing upright as we slowed, I cupped my hands and bellowed, "Who are you, and what do you want?" I felt Cam jolt from beside me. He shot me a sly grin in the dim light as he killed the ignition. He loved it when I played the role of commander. I felt his hand cut my bottom. Now! I boomed, making him remove his hand rapidly. Chapter 2. As the familiar face drifted in view, faintly illuminated by the dawnlight, I sucked in my breath, recognizing Georgia's long dark hair and exotic features. We had enjoyed our weeks on Clava, the easiness of it all. Sharing a home with Georgia and Bridget had been wonderful, but we had sensed that something was off. Despite their offers of support, of relocation, we had made the difficult decision to return home to our family and friends, only later learning that we had been fed a drug to keep us compliant. The final straw that had seen us sever all communication had been learning that they had infected our friend Diana, along with several others from non-complying communities, with cancer, believing that if their doctors saved her, we would join the collective. What we hadn't known then was why they had chosen us all. We always knew that we were selected to ensure the survival of humanity. The part we hadn't known was that we were expected to take part in their forced breeding program. Instead of conforming like most of the other communities and choosing a life of connectedness, better technology and resources, we had chosen to isolate ourselves and set up security systems to alert us to possible intruders. We had lived in peace, but hypervigilance, so we were wary of what tricks they could be up to now. "Why are you here?" Georgia blurted, but quickly recovered her composure. "Freyja, Campbell." She nodded at us, a smile on her face, although I noted it didn't reach her eyes. "It is good to see you." I wish I could say the same. Georgia sensed the warning and flinched. "Why are you here?" "We, that is Bridget and I, have come to talk to you." "Talk to us? You couldn't have radioed, let us know you planned to drop by for a cup of tea in the middle of the night and scare us all." "Well, the matter we wanted to discuss is a little delicate." "Delicate? I'll tell you what's delicate. Learning that you and your friends were planning to breed us like pedigreed dogs, discuss our genetic profile over drinks, scribbling notes and planning who to partner us with. Treat us like science experiments." She stammered. "Tell me," I snapped, not wanting to listen to feeble excuses. "Are you an endocrinologist, a fertility specialist? All that time we lived together, you knew what they planned for us, and you said nothing." "I am." Her long black hair fell across her face as she looked down at her feet. "Why didn't you tell us?" I was seething. "You told us you were a doctor." I felt Cam's reassuring hand rest on my shoulder. "I am a doctor. You deliberately deceived us, because that part of the project was still secret. No one was supposed to know. Even I didn't know all of it then, truly. They chose me to help couples conceive, to ensure that we all survived, and we all wanted that. I swear I knew nothing about the selected partner part. Honestly, and I am a doctor, I just specialise, that's all." "It was a massive omission," Cam spoke calmly from beside me. "You stitched us both that day and said nothing. Not to mention all those evenings we spent together. We trusted you, thought you were our friend." Georgia shrugged forlornly. "They bound me to secrecy. My loyalty was to the project. Then." "Then?" I questioned, picking up on the pertinent word. "I guess you could say that things have changed." "Spit it out. Why are you here, and why now?" "Bridget and I have 2 children." "Okay, so what?" I snarled, not in the mood to offer congratulations. "We have 4. What's your point?" "As the girls grew, we knew something wasn't right." "What do you mean, not right?" Cam cut off my next comment, suspicion dripping from his words. Georgia stepped back onto the deck, calling, "Bridge, girls," through the open hatchway. Bridget emerged from the lower deck holding the hands of 2 blonde girls, the glow of the early morning light illuminating them. She hadn't changed. Her brown wavy hair was longer, tinted with gold, and she was slightly more curvaceous. I gasped audibly, and I felt Cam's body tense beside me. These two girls were so similar looking that it was apparent that they had the same parentage. But that wasn't what had made me react. These two girls were the spitting image of our daughters, Katrin, Xanthi, and me. My mouth hung open. Judging by the gurgling noises beside me, Cam was also struggling to form words.